Welcome back to FAQ, also known as Frequently Asked Questions. And today I'm going to be talking about the iQOO 11, and it looks absolutely cool. And it's also one of the first Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor phones to reach Malaysian shores. We're going to be answering a couple of questions about this phone and see where it can take us, whether you should buy this or not, whether it's right for you or not. So the first things first, how is the design? Well, the design is pretty much like all the previous iQOO phones that have been released, such as the iQOO 9 series. You can see that it almost looks identical to the iQOO 9. Of course, with the camera bump looking a lot different than the previous generations. And they've mostly retained very premium materials. This is a nicely weighted phone. It's got a faux leather back and it's got those BMW Motorsport racing elements that is one stripe all the way up with three colors. They're very proud of this partnership. They're definitely promoting it on their boxes, and it's also the first thing you see when you open the box, which is a card with a BMW car. Can the iQOO 11 be a good gaming phone? I mean, obviously it can be, even on paper. Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, 16 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of internal storage. That's pretty generous. Oh, and a 144Hz refresh rate on an LTPO AMOLED. You get to save battery when you're not playing games, because it dynamically changes that refresh rate, and it will still be going on that very high refresh rate when you're playing compatible games. But one thing I oddly discovered was, like, when I am just on the menu and I set the refresh rate to a hard 144Hz mode, it only navigates up to 120Hz, and I just don't know why. Maybe that 144Hz is enabled for just compatible games, I'm not sure myself. But either way, performance was really good. The games I play, I maxed it out. I even went up a notch and increased the resolution to 1440p, going to 144Hz, and enabled monster mode, which is like their performance mode where they just hit the maximum clock rate settings for the CPU and the GPU, and it just worked great. Temperature was really decent at almost topping 43 to 44 degrees on very demanding games, and some of my auto games such as this one. And all this was just me doing my daily quests, which would probably take close up to an hour. So for people who need to do their daily quests and need to do a grind on something like Genshin, this is definitely a phone that can hold up and keep those promises of good performance on sustained gameplay. But do take note, when you enable monster mode, that's gonna take a lot of battery. So that 5000 milliamp battery charges up in just 30 minutes. 120 watts, that's a pretty good charger. Here you go, 120 watts with a proprietary USB Type-C to Type-C cable, which is right here. So don't lose these because you won't enjoy the maximum benefit because these are proprietary. The AMOLED screen is gorgeous too, presenting great colors and contrast, even under direct sunlight. At this point, all expensive Android phones already have high quality displays such as this one, but it's good for me to highlight anyway. So it has everything and a very modest camera system. So that takes me to the next question. Can it actually take good photos since it's such a gaming focused phone? I've already taken some photos, but here are the specs first. So it's a triple camera setup, a 50 megapixel Samsung GN5 sensor as the main sensor, a 13 megapixel telephoto that goes up to 2 times in optical zoom, and an 8 megapixel ultra wide. The overall photo quality was above average, with the main sensor leading the pack. Colors and dynamic range here was good, even on the default natural color setting. It does well in landscape and perspective photos, but starts to get a little noisy and smeary in texture when there isn't enough light, and that's pretty normal. Low light quality was good only on this sensor, with good detail and very good noise control. If you enable night mode, shadows simply look better and the colors go up a notch. The 2x telephoto captures details nicely, outputting 13 megapixel photos with a good amount of sharpness and noise control. It does, however, take a dip in colors because they're not just consistent with the main sensor, and it might look a little washed out. Dynamic range was above average, and I deem it acceptable. The last would be ultra wide, coming in at 8 megapixels, which I feel was just so-so. Colors get even more muted here, and there's obviously a drop in sharpness and detail since it packs less pixels. It definitely cannot compete with ultra wides on higher end phones, making this sensor a mid-range one at best. Here's some 4K video that I threw in the mix with some stabilization enabled. But please do take note that there is a little crop, so you need to adjust your shot to compensate for that. Front facing was decent at best, even though it could go only up to 1080p at 30 FPS. Here's how it looks and sounds. iQOO 11 front facing camera test, maximum resolution, 1080p, 30 FPS, windy, noisy conditions. You can zoom in as well using the slider that's in the camera dashboard app, see? And you can zoom back out gradually. Pretty immersive, not bad. But let me know what you think. And if you're just out and about, you can pretty much get 2 to 3 days on casual use with some light gaming and just social media scrolling wherever you are. But if you are a heavy gamer and you have multiple sessions throughout the day, be prepared to know that you go home with about just 20%. But again, the battery life and the recharging is pretty good here. 120 watts, 30 minutes will get you back to full. And in half that time, you can still go up to about 80-ish%, and those are pretty good numbers. This is a pretty good experience for me so far. At the end of the day, it's just a gaming smartphone with a really cool design. So having a modest camera setup like this is a good sign. And besides, it's not just the hardware all the time that takes the blame for photos that are not ideal. Software is equally important, and this is where I begin to not really like it. I'm not a fan of FunTouch OS. It's not very intuitive. I don't like the design because this phone is pretty premium. There's nothing on the iQOO 11 that is remotely BMW related, from logos to wallpapers or anything. I mean, you already paid the whole licensing fee, might as well just use it to match everything else. But no, you still get stuck with FunTouch OS. I don't like the ads. I don't like the secondary app store. And there's just some bloatware that's just pre-installed. So get rid of those things. Make your operating system as lightweight as possible. Change the way it looks totally. And I think we got a champion here. I mean, people are paying upwards of 3,000 ringgit for this phone. It costs 34.99. So the next two things that are missing on this device is a proper IP rating as well as the lack of wireless charging. I mean, I guess it's also one way to keep costs down if they even know how to do that. And you don't want your wireless charging coils to just leave an imprint on that really nice leather back. But yeah, that lack of IP rating could be a concern for some people. Probably it can survive a splash or two, but anything more than that, I'd say sayonara. Still, nonetheless, it's a pretty good attempt by iQOO to make a really nice phone for the start of the year, and I believe it has been selling quite well. It is what I would call a premium mid-range phone with a flagship chipset, cool design, a good screen, an okay camera system, good battery life, with even better recharging capabilities. Obviously, you know who this phone is gonna be for. It's gonna be for you, the gamer. It's also gonna be for you who watches Netflix and YouTube videos outside all the time. The screen is great for that. It's also capable of taking some decent pictures every now and then, but you gotta rely on that lighting very much so, just like the rest of everyone else's smartphone camera these days. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Zen the Geek, and this has been the iQOO 11. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!